The Italian mafia and Mexican cartels built a cocaine empire worth billions, but in 2025, everything changed. Los Angeles erupted into chaos. Federal agents carried out one of the largest coordinated operations in U.S. history, arresting over 3,000 suspects in a single day. Yet buried within those arrests was a discovery that would shake the foundations of organized crime forever. Los Angeles wasn't just another dot on the cartel's map, it was the empire. Attorney Martin Estrada wasn't exaggerating when he called Los Angeles the #1 hub for narcotics trafficking in the nation. His claim was backed by cold, undeniable facts. Thousands of hours of surveillance, hundreds of prosecutions, and the seizure of staggering amounts of drugs, cash, and assets, proof of a criminal ecosystem operating at industrial scale. To understand why Los Angeles holds this title, you have to look at its geography and infrastructure, two factors that make it a smuggler's paradise. The city lies less than 150 miles from Tijuana, Mexico, one of the main and quietly. Within hours, narcotics can cross the border and flood into LA's streets, warehouses, and distribution networks before law enforcement even knows they're coming. But it's not just location that makes Los Angeles the perfect storm, it's the infrastructure. The Port of Los Angeles and neighboring Long Beach form the largest shipping route undetected, shielded by the sheer scale of trade. Meanwhile, Los Angeles International Airport, one of the busiest in the world, processes Sinaloa cartel with its decades-old roots in Southern California, wields the most influence. They control not only import and distribution, but large-scale drug production cultivation sites scattered across remote California wilderness, massive industrial-scale grow farms stretching across public lands and national forests. These aren't backyard operations. They're agricultural strongholds. What makes these sites even more destructive is their toll on the environment. The cartels have diverted rivers, stolen millions of gallons of water from drought-stricken ecosystems, and used illegal pesticides and fertilizers that poison soil and waterways for miles. The environmental devastation has been staggering. In 2021, authorities carried out what was described as Los Angeles County's largest ever marijuana bust, a glimpse into the vastness of the operation. Those raids didn't stop there. By 2025, have become. The methods used to move drugs through the city are constantly evolving, adapting faster than law enforcement can respond. At LAX and the ports, drugs are carried by human mules who swallow tightly wrapped packages to transport them internally, often at the risk of instant death, allow massive quantities of drugs to flow under the border undetected, completely bypassing above-ground checkpoints, sexity, and reach. One of the cartel's primary tools is the black market peso exchange, BMPE, which thrives in the city's bustling fashion district. Here's how it works. The cartels generate enormous cash profits from drug sales across the United States, but they can't deposit these funds directly without triggering bank alarms. Instead, they channel the money through seemingly legitimate retail, confirming what federal officials feared most. Los Angeles had become not only the nation's largest drug distribution hub, but also the global financial center of organized crime.
I've reported extensively on how CJ&G is pretty focused on crude oil theft and smuggling. Unlike their rivals or their allies, like the Sinaloa Cartel, for example, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel focuses mainly on meth, human trafficking, and crude oil theft and trafficking, subsequent smuggling into the United States and into Canada.
Cartel activity in Los Angeles extends far beyond drugs and money. It now encompasses human trafficking, sex trafficking, and even crude oil theft and smuggling, with stolen petroleum and refined products secretly moved into the United States and Canada through complex black market supply chains. Among the darkest dimensions of this criminal web is the exploitation of human lives. In August 2025, federal agents dismantled a major human trafficking ring run by the Hoover Criminals Gang, a group closely tied to the Sinaloa Cartel. The operation, centered along Figueroa Street, an infamous stretch known locally as the Blade, uncovered a network that had enslaved women and underage girls in the sex trade. 11 members were indicted on 31 federal charges, including human trafficking, conspiracy, and violent offenses. Just months earlier, in May 2025, authorities conducted a transnational gang takedown that led to dozens of arrests for crimes ranging from attempted murder and kidnapping to large-scale fraud schemes. As enforcement efforts intensified, the Trump administration launched what many describe as the most aggressive anti-cartel campaign in modern U.S. history. Los Angeles became the central front. In October 2025, more than 3,000 arrests were made during a nationwide sweep led by Homeland Security task forces spanning all 50 states. On October 8th, the FBI and LAPD executed a major takedown of the Rancho San Pedro gang, a powerful organization with direct connections to both the Sinaloa cartel and the Mexican Mafia, La M. 14 suspects were arrested, weapons and narcotics were seized, and sweeping RICO charges were filed. FBI Director Kash Patel described the operation as a decisive turning point in the fight against cartel influence in Southern California. The pressure didn't stop there. In July 2025, U.S. Border Patrol Special Operations teams captured 3 Colombian fugitives wanted for homicide and linked to international human smuggling networks. The following month, massive ICE raids exposed long-running smuggling pipelines that had trafficked more than 20,000 people into the United States since 2019, many through Los Angeles-based networks. These coordinated efforts revealed the staggering scale of modern cartel operations, an empire built not just on drugs, but on human lives. By late 2025, the conflict had evolved into something far larger than a war on drugs. It had become an actual war complete with military-grade tactics, global intelligence sharing, and operations that mirrored counterterrorism campaigns. What began under President Richard Nixon in 1971 as a domestic anti-drug initiative has transformed into an international conflict spanning continents. Under President Donald Trump's second term, this escalation reached an unprecedented level. Mexican drug cartels were officially designated foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs, placing them in the same legal category as ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Hezbollah. This shift authorized the use of enhanced counterterrorism measures, military intelligence, and cross-border strikes. Since the war's inception, the U.S. government has spent over $1 trillion fighting narcotics trafficking. In 2023, the annual federal budget for drug enforcement, prevention, and treatment programs hit $39 billion, not including the tens of billions more spent by state and local agencies. Yet the human toll remains staggering. As of October 2024, 84,760 Americans had died from drug overdoses in a single 12-month period. Though that number marked a 26% decline from the record highs of prior years, it still means more Americans are dying annually from overdoses than were killed during the entire Vietnam War. All of this leads to October 2025, a moment described by many inside federal agencies as both the culmination of decades of investigation and the beginning of a new, more dangerous era. A war that no longer hides in the shadows. A war where cartels are not just traffickers but terrorists. In Los Angeles, their empire's heart has become the front line of that global battle.
Of course, like we've seen, the cartels are using shell companies, falsified paperwork, and of course, bribery of customs and port officials to get this oil through.